Compound interest and consistency, two concepts that are, of course, closely linked to one another, but also two concepts that, if you ask me, are about as close as we can get to performing magic as human beings. And consistency really does show its magic in the sales profession. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Pago Academy YouTube channel. Thank you for tuning in again. Thank you for checking out another video. Consistency, I think, is one of the main, if not the main driver of results in life. Bottom line, not just in sales, but any form of results are predominantly going to be able to be boiled back down to consistency. Sticking at one particular thing for a long enough amount of time is always going to inevitably lead to some form of results. And a lack of consistency is something that, unfortunately, I do see quite often in our client portfolio. For the past 8 years, I've ran a sales agency that helps startups improve the way they sell in a B2B environment. And what I see time and time again is founders that come to me with a story that goes a little bit like this. Yeah, we've dabbled with sales, we've dabbled with outreach and trying to do it ourselves, but we never really quite get around to it, and so we never really get very far. Yeah, that seems to be about right, because if you do a bit of sales work on a random Tuesday, then do nothing for 2 weeks and then do another little bit of sales work on a random Thursday, that is not really a recipe for success. In fact, it's a recipe for downright failure. When you get consistency, then come rain, come shine, you get the work done. It becomes a bit of a machine. It becomes a bit of a compulsive behavior. It doesn't matter what happens. That one thing is something that you need to get done. You do it when you feel well. You do it when you feel bad. You do it when you feel motivated. You do it when you feel like the whole world is against you. It's this compulsive drive to need to get that thing done on a daily basis. If you can get around to doing that, guaranteed you will start getting results. So what sales really boils down to is a game of volume and timing, and consistency feeds both of those. Now, you can't control when a prospect will be ready, and you can't control when the timing will be the right time for a prospect. But what you can control is that you continuously follow up and stay on the prospect's radar. Outreach, content, follow-ups, phone calls, whatever it is, it's your job to make sure that when the time does become right for the prospect, you are top of mind. So essentially, the rep who follows up 7 times over the space of 3 to 4 months will close more deals than the rep who sends one killer message and then disappears. And you got to remember that skill, any form of skill, compounds with consistency and repetition. Like, you got to learn from your mistakes, you got to go through the ropes, and it's only by trial and error, by actually performing the sales actions, the outreach, the calls, sending the proposals, doing the follow-up, creating the content, that you actually figure out what works. You have to go through those motions. You have to make those critical errors to be able to learn that. The way you do that is by being consistent. So the best people at anything and the best sellers are the people who've just kind of created an environment that allows them to go through thousands of repetitions of a particular action or set of combined actions. They will become the best performers, much more so than the people who just rely on their talent. So when people catch a big break, or all of a sudden seem to be onto a killer period in their career, whether that is, in sales or somewhere else, it's because they've built up to that moment. And you don't build up to, for example, a 1 million or 100K month by sprinting towards that point. You do that by running a marathon of preparatory, repetitive, consistent work. And then all of a sudden, it starts clicking, the puzzle starts falling into place, and the deals start falling right, left, and center. Now, there's an awful lot of preparatory work that goes into that, and that's where the consistency comes into play. And what consistency will also give you is pipeline stability. If you're consistent with all of the actions throughout your pipeline, it will remain relatively stable. Now, yes, it will fluctuate in terms of thickness of the pipeline, of course, but if you do the consistent required actions, it will remain relatively stable, and you won't have this feast or famine type of a setup that a lot of salespeople have to go through, and especially a lot of startup founders have to go through as well. Now, how do you get that consistency? Well, you get that consistency by building yourself a structure, a kind of a procedure that you are knowingly sticking to. It's kind of like a program that you create for yourself, a sequence of actions, a routine, a habit, if you will, that you go through every single day. You cannot leave this up to accident almost, and you definitely can't leave it up to a point where, well, once I've ticked off all the other actions on my to-do list, I'll do some consistent sales work. You got to look at carving out a piece of your day, a large chunk of your day, ideally, to get down to brass tacks and actually perform those actions. Again, come rain, come shine, you get them done. And there's nothing really else that can pop onto your priority list that can kind of make that go down on the priority list. Now, of course, with the exception of issues in relation to health of you and your family, of course, I know, but from a professional standpoint, that should always be on top of your priority list. And really, you should set yourself a hard and fast rule that you cannot close off the day until you've done those repetitive, consistent sales actions. So there you have it, a short one for this week, because consistency is really a case of getting it done. Build yourself a structure, build yourself a sequence that you can stick to, and then get into the trenches and perform those actions. And then let the combination of time and those actions start showing you the magic. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you enjoyed the video, a thumbs up would be massively appreciated. If you enjoy any of the other stuff on the channel, then perhaps subscribing would be a good idea. That would also be massively appreciated. Thank you for your time. I look forward to seeing you in another video. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and I hope to see you very soon. Thank you. Have a good rest of the day. Have a productive rest of the day. Bye-bye.